Welcome to the Hear This podcast, the podcast that addresses real life issues in real ways.
And real death issues.
And real death issues in real ways. My name's Zach.
I'm Tyson. So you guys, of course, have been following the Hear This podcast and the Guess That Martyr series that we've been doing. We, on Tuesday, gave you 5 hints to guess this martyr with a massive prize on the line. It is too late now because the podcast is dropping.
Yep.
But if you want to still participate, we'll give you the hints one more time, and you can see if you and Jackson can guess it. So, hint number 1. This martyr once swam across the Nile River while it was a mile wide. The Nile, I like to call it.
I like that, yeah. This martyr is known for their incredible size and strength. Again, if you have to swim across the Nile.
You better be.
Yeah,
you better
exactly.
be strong, or at least buoyant. Yeah.
True.
Also, no, it's not Saint Fezzik. They share a name with a very important biblical character. Where my Princess Bride head's at.
This could be one of my favorites. They had a grudge against a dog before they became a Christian. It's like they became a Christian and they're like,
I forgive that dog.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. I think of the hints that we've come up with, that's like my top 3. The grudge against the dog.
And let me guess, the cow's the other one.
The cow,
yes,
and the winter equinox.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a lot
you really like that one.
I did like it a lot. I love the math.
You're like, Zach, I have to work this in.
And finally, at one point in their life, this martyr prayed 50 times a day, which is a lot of times.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jackson, give us your guess, buddy.
All right. So, continuing with the Nile, mile. What rhymes with Nile and mile is crocodile, and crocodiles are also found at the Nile.
Right.
And they're also known for their incredible size and strength. So
That's
I'm guessing that our martyr today is a crocodile.
It's not Crocodile Dundee.
That is a fantastic guess, though.
I like where you went with that.
Yes. Also, I do not remember crocodiles being named as important Bible characters. But
they were in the story, according to the Prince of Egypt. They were swimming in the Nile, right?
That's true. They were also swimming in the Nile when, okay, drum roll, please. Saint Moses is the name of this martyr. They were in the Nile when he swam across it.
But not Moses in the Bible, right?
No.
Okay,
right.
Cool.
Different Moses.
Awesome.
So really quick, I'm going to do a 2 truths and a lie.
Perfect.
For Saint Moses. So Jackson, you can guess it. I want to hear. I want to just listeners at home play along. Think which yours are. So number 1, he was the leader of a band of 100 thieves.
Ooh.
Number 2, he once tied up 4 robbers at a monastery. Which, like, I don't know who's robbing monasteries. Simple life. It's like their
seriously.
one rule. And number 3, he once stayed awake for 6 years. You got the lie might surprise you. I'm clickbaiting you guys. Jackson, what do you think the lie is?
I'm just going to have to go with the 6 years because that seems physically impossible.
It does. So I wish we had time to get into hagiographies and everything that means. That actually is a story that's told about him. Probably an exaggeration.
Yeah.
That happened over time. But that's like what happens with a lot of these early desert fathers, these monks that were early on. Great stories get told about them.
Yeah.
That one I'm counting as true. Because there's truth in it. The one that is not true. Zach, do you have a guess?
What was the first one again?
100 Thieves.
I think it's that one because I'm pretty sure the 4 robbers is part of the story.
Yes, it is. So the lie is the first one. He was the leader of a band of 75 robbers.
Yes.
So blew it up a little.
I knew it. I know that was part of the story. I just couldn't remember the number. And I know both of those were true, like the thieves and the robbers. Yep. And so I was like trying to go like, oh great, I got to remember my numbers.
What's less true?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Modern day Robin Hood.
Yes.
By modern day Robin Hood, I don't mean like modern day. I mean like 300 AD.
300, yeah. Even more ancient Robin Hood.
Yeah, so we're talking about Moses the Strong, not Moses in the Bible.
Nope, not Moses the Israelite.
So give us a little bit tell us about Moses the Strong.
Right. So actually a lot of parallels with Moses the Israelite from the Bible that I hope to point out as we go through. St. Moses was born in 330 A.D. In Egypt, worked as a slave to an Egyptian official. So
Parallel.
Already
There we go.
similar to Moses.
Yeah.
Kicked out, like he had to leave his master's household for thievery and suspected murder. Again, Moses also had to flee Egypt because he killed somebody. So when he did this, Moses joined a gang of thieves, 75 thieves, who roamed the Nile Valley. They chose him as their leader because he was so big and strong. So there's just 75 thieves out there, and he walks up, and they're like, will you be in charge of us? Which I think is so funny.
Would he be like The Rock?
Yes.
Like that big?
Like he's, think
like
of The Rock.
When I like envision big, strong people next to Adam, I think of The Rock. Like, I'm just saying.
Yes. Think of The Rock. He was, very big, tall, strong guy. Very like a nasty, brutish guy in his early life, like very like gluttonous and vengeful and mean. The story about. Do you want to just briefly hear the story about the dog?
Yeah.
Okay, so he has this evil plan to steal from somebody. The dog ruins it by barking. So he then has a grudge against the dog, but also against the dog's owner, who is a shepherd.
Yeah.
So this is when he swims across the Nile. He puts a sword in his mouth and swims across the crocodile-infested Nile. Crazy guy.
Dude, I feel like that's like a Rambo movie, or
I
like
know.
Sylvester Stallone, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like one of those movies.
Yeah.
Like,
so he swims across the Nile. Somebody warned the shepherd that he was coming, so the shepherd hides, but he finds the sheep, kills 4 of the best rams, then swims with 4 rams back across the Nile, cuts them up, eats the best meat for himself, sells the rest for wine, drinks the wine, then walks 50 miles to go join his thief buddies again. So this is like, that's a story that gets passed down for him in contrast to the great things that he does as a monk, that like he lived a very like viceful life.
Yeah. So like there's lots of stories, right?
Yes.
Like about early monks, desert monks, like and they're awesome.
Yeah.
Like they're great stories like that. Is Moses known for any other stories outside of his martyrdom?
Absolutely. So the first one is his conversion, which is really unique. He was fleeing from the authorities and ended up in a monastery, which were just out there in the desert. Again, this is early monks, very simple life. They're living out in the desert.
Yeah.
And so he fled and hid in this monastery, and he was just struck by the lifestyle of the monks. Like it just hit him so, like these people have something that's so unique. So immediately repented, confessed, was baptized, became a Christian, became a monk.
Dude, do you know what I think is awesome about that? Like the idea of like churches being a place of refuge.
Yeah.
Like for all people.
Yeah. And to think this like theme kind of repeats, but like thieves coming to a monastery.
Yeah.
Like absolute criminal. And they come in and they're just like, oh, yeah, never mind. Like this is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So awesome.
So when I looked up Moses the Strong, all the paintings that I saw, they had him carrying around a bag of sand. What's up with that?
So the bag of sand, another really cool story from his life. He was once called to, I guess you could consider it sort of like a trial for a fellow brother in the monastery. He'd committed some offense. And the monks were like, okay, we need to gather together and decide what his punishment is.
Yeah.
So they call to Moses. Moses decides not to come. And they call to him again, and he's like, fine. He comes in carrying a bag or a basket that he's filled with sand and cut a hole in. And they're like, what is this about? Like, why?
Yeah.
And so he walks in and he says, I come in with my sins trailing behind me, and I don't even see them, and yet I'm casting judgment on this man who's sinned. And at his words in this super cool object lesson, they go, oh yeah, okay, and they let the guy go. He's forgiven and restored, just like that. It reminds me a lot of the like Jesus saying, "Cast the first stone."
Totally.
So cool.
Cool. That's cool imagery.
Yeah.
Of that, you know, and especially when you think of like his own story, like in.
Yeah, his sins really do trail out behind him.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool. What about his martyrdom? Like,
Yeah, let's get to the good part
Yeah.
where he dies.
Yeah, seriously.
So Moses' life was very interesting because he always struggled. Like his story is like he has a lot of like outward peace, but he has a lot of inner turmoil. And all the stories you read about him will be sort of reporting on this like struggle that he has.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that as I read it, it seems like he finally finds this inward peace in his kind of last days, where they get this report at his monastery that there are a bunch of thieves coming to attack. Some reports say that it's a band of 75 barbarians, which is a parallel to his band of 75 thieves.
Yeah.
The brothers of the monastery wanted to take up arms, like defend the holy place that they have.
Yeah.
And Moses says, no, like it's not right for us to take up arms. But he quotes Jesus in saying that like it's fitting that he would stay and defend the monastery because those who live by the sword would die by the sword. So he had lived by the sword as a young person.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, this is fitting for me. So he tells the rest of the brothers of the monastery to flee. There are 6 of the monks who stay with him, and they are there to greet the barbarians with open arms. That didn't go so well.
Yeah.
So they come in and just slaughter them. And so 7 monks are martyred on that day. Yeah, and that's so not as like we've been talking about like convictions and the things we stand for and standing up to power. This is another story, almost like an extreme version of Thomas Beckett's story.
Totally,
with the random silliness that just kind of like he holds to nonviolence.
Yeah.
And dies.
Yeah. Totally. Well, and that was his conviction. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Again, it's hard to distinguish legend versus like fact,
right?
But you're going like a guy that big. I'm not saying he could have taken all, but I mean he could have held his own.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah, and so another really cool story from Moses' life is that 4 thieves came into his cell in the night and tried to like hurt him, rob him, something. He overpowers all 4 of them, and he'd been fasting for like 6 days, I think the story goes. And so he like grabs them all, ties them up, throws them over his shoulder, and then walks into the sanctuary, plops them down in front of the elders, and he goes, so I'm not permitted to do any harm to them. What then should we do?
Yeah.
And they're all kind of like, And he turns then to the thieves, and he says, like, hey, it's me, Moses the Strong. And they're like, wait a second. Like, this same Moses the Strong who, like went after that guy's dog? Like, and they saw his transformation. And then they all converted and became monks.
Dude, that's so awesome.
Yeah, which is such a cool. So I think reading like this, like definitely if he had a weapon, forget about it for these barbarians. Like he had incredible power, but had this commitment to nonviolence.
Yeah. Which
like
again is interesting, given his past, right?
Right.
That's interesting. So, what do you think, or what is your biggest takeaway with Moses the Strong?
Yeah. So one thing that like I mentioned, his struggles stayed with him throughout his life. And so, you know, of course, in the reports of the Desert Fathers, which are like vastly dramatized to tell stories, which I want to be careful how I say that. I'm not saying that they're not true. Like it doesn't make them any less true, but they're, so I'm saying that like the events may be dramatized, but the truth of the stories holds. He struggled. That's the truth of the story is that he struggled. And because of that would do crazy things like the story of him staying awake for 6 years. Like he was like, I will not cease to pray. I will stand and like keep my eyes open. He locked his knees and stood there for 6 years. Probably not historically.
Yeah.
But really like this is a story of someone trying to grow in holiness and force that growth.
Totally.
And what I keep thinking about is like the very little amount of grace that he had for himself in this time.
Yeah.
That he's like, I must be perfected.
Yeah.
I have to like, I believe in the power of God to drive these demons out of my soul. Like I have to keep fighting for this.
Yeah.
And it plagued him so much that his sort of Abba, like his mentor at the monastery, his name was Isidore, took him up to the rooftop one morning for sunrise. And as the sun is rising, he says, see, look how the light only gradually drives out the shadows. So it is for the soul. And that was still like, even after that was still something Moses struggled with his whole life, was this inner turmoil.
Yeah.
But he finally has this moment like late in his life where the story is like he gets beat up by a demon.
Yeah.
Which happens a lot in these Desert Father stories.
Yeah, totally.
And then he finally relies on God's power to like get rid of the temptation in his life, get rid of the sinful patterns in his thought, in his mind, the evil dreams that he's having, and that's when he finally starts to make progress.
Yeah.
So, sorry, this is a long way around to your question, which is the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
For me, it's that Moses, the strong, right, big strong guy, trying to become holy on his own terms.
Yeah.
You know, staying awake for 6 years and praying 50 times a day. He's trying to do what he's always done in his life, which is overcome.
Yeah.
But it's not us who overcome, it's Christ who overcomes for us.
Yeah.
And so he finally starts to make progress when he gives his struggles to God.
Yeah.
I think that's the lesson in our life, that we are not the creators of grace. We are responding to grace.
Yeah,
and
totally.
that we are accepting grace. We're not forging grace.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. That'll preach. I think too, like with his life, there's a certain amount of humility.
Absolutely.
So like, you know what I mean? And like wanting to have the last say, and like but he humbled himself.
Yeah.
Like once he became a follower of Christ, like you see this transformation happen in his life, and the power of our testimony.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's so powerful to know our story, and how do our actions match that? I think of the story that you told about the 4 robbers that broke in, you know, and like they became followers of Christ through the transformation they saw in Moses the Strong.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, thinking about that story in contrast to the story of the vengeance against the shepherd.
Yeah.
Is like, so he goes from this person who this small slight happens to him accidentally, and he tracks down 4 sheep. But then when 4 wolves come into his house, he packs them up over his shoulder and brings them to forgiveness and life rather than death.
Totally.
Yeah. Very, very cool story. But contrasting to our the martyrs we've been talking about doesn't have like this conviction, like this huge moment, this culmination. But I think that's fitting because God's grace is gradual. It's like the sunrise.
Yeah.
You know, there are it continues throughout our whole life.
Yeah. Exactly. And every story is different.
Yeah.
Right? There's no 2 stories alike.
Yeah. And we talked a few weeks ago with Perpetua about how we like faith always calls on us to have challenges, and like faithfulness is there's a cost.
Totally. Yep.
Moses' story is an example of how there's kind of 2 sides to that too. Yeah. That like Moses in his faithfulness sees the rewards of that. Yeah. He gets this inner peace.
Yeah.
He is sanctified. Like he God's grace overcomes these challenges in his life.
Exactly.
Which is another beautiful side of that we see in martyrdom that we maybe haven't talked as much about.
It's so true. And this has been a fun series to go through. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's been so encouraging just to see different aspects, different sides, and again, just like how are we being obedient to whatever God might be nudging us to do? And I think that's what we see in every story presented so far. Yeah, is that it's looked different every time. Yeah, right. For Moses the Black, it was like be an agent of forgiveness, like hope, like transformation. Absolutely. And so for me, those are the inspiring stories that we got to tell over the last couple of weeks. And so we want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. And Tyson, will you end it for us today?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, one thing that sticks out to me about the story of Moses is how God's love overcame when Moses was willing to accept it. Yeah. And so if you don't hear anything else from this episode today, hear this, that you are loved, not only by me and Zach, not only by the youth staff, the church, but more importantly, by God.
Yep. Thank you so much. Have a great week.